Hello, my lovely people. I'm Sinead and welcome. This week on Craft and Chat, I just want to chat with you about a few projects that I'm doing kind of on the side, a little bit at a time, here and there, for my own entertainment and memories. I don't usually purchase things on the secondary market because of my chemical sensitivities and my inability to process fragrance, which is almost always on an object that you get on the secondary market. So when I do decide to go ahead and risk this, I will open the box outside and take the object, and I'll be wearing a mask, and usually I put on the mask after I know for certain that the object inside is fragranced. I don't put on a mask or I won't know how bad it is. So you open the box and you get that first small whiff, stick the mask on, and then you take the object out and put it in a Ziploc bag. And then I can examine it without being exposed to the fragrance to know whether or not it's what I ordered. And then I can leave it in that Ziploc bag for a while to decontaminate. The plastic will bond with the fragrance and pull it out of the object a lot of the time. So I have a couple of baby dolls that in the process it's been a multi-stage thing. So I had it in the Ziploc. I waited, I don't know, something like 6 months, took it out of the Ziploc outside again, and it still smelled. But this is a soft-bodied doll, and I actually bought 2 of them. And so I took it apart so that I could wash the body and try and decontaminate the plastic parts, the head and the arms and legs, of fragrance without the cloth body and the clothing. So I treated them separately because that's just an easier way to clean the objects. And the plastic got washed. It got fully washed so that if there was any dirt or whatever that was hanging on to the fragrance, it got washed off too. So anyways, it went back into the plastic bag after everybody was dry in the Ziploc. And one of these dolls has been in a Ziploc for 3 years, off and on. It never spends any more time out of the Ziploc than it takes me to do whatever cleaning that I'm doing during that point. And then it goes back into the Ziploc, and it spends most of the time in the Ziploc. And so what we have hit is a 2-year mark on one of the dolls and a 3-year mark on the other doll. And I'm kind of getting to this point of, I was just feeling like if it hasn't worked, then I need to give up and say this project is a no-go and walk away from it. So I did actually decide that I could stand to start working with them. This is one of the babies. This is a horseman from 1972. It's a doll that I saw up on a shelf in Woolworths, and I wanted it so badly, and my mother said no. She was embarrassed that I asked, and she said no, and we left the store so fast my head spun. The other doll is a Vogue baby doll. It's from 1964, and because it's from 1964, I'm pretty sure that what happened with this doll is that it was my sister's, and my mom probably said, "You're too old for dolls," and made her give it to me. And so she was like a constant companion. I loved her little soft body and walking around cuddling her. And we got chicken pox, my brother and I, and some of our cousins. And my mom was the only stay-at-home mom, so the cousins came and stayed at our house. And one of them decided she wanted my doll, and she snatched it. And because she was kind of older at this point, she ripped in half. So this doll is older than I am, which I always think is kind of funny. They get a doll from your childhood that's older than you are. Not antiques is a whole nother ball game, and yeah, you totally get dolls that are older than you are then. But, you know, this is one I had a real attachment to. So it was kind of cool to pick that up. But anyway, I took their bodies, I cleaned them, and decided whether or not they were salvageable. The horseman's body is in really good shape. It never came out of the box, and apparently there was no chemical reaction going on that ate the cotton or anything like that. So I'll be able to reuse that body. But the Vogue baby doll had a lot of rot right at the seam because because of the way they put it together. So I'm going to turn the camera around so that you can see what I'm talking about, and I'll show you. I'm not actually going to get this doll back together, but I can show you some of the things that are going on. This is the horseman body. It's turned wrong side out. I thought it was interesting that they stitched all the way around, and you'll see that on the Vogue baby doll they didn't. It also has a little section to make it a better sitting doll. So here is, well, I took apart this body so that I could use it as a pattern, but I only took it apart as far as I needed to. So this one half is ironed and the other half is not. It's open at the joints here. There's an opening for an arm, there's an opening for a leg, and it was sewn to the body. So I took it apart and took out the side seam and opened it out and ironed it so that it would make a decent pattern. But you can see here there are so much, you know, it's rotten, it's discolored. They used wire to hold the arms and legs on. So what I've done here is this, and I did have a really great color match. I sewed it back on by hand, the leg. So the leg is stuck into here. And one of the things that I had to look for, after removing all of these threads, which is really time consuming. I was really surprised by that. But anyway, there's a little notch right here, a little bump. When you put the leg into the body, and this is the belly right here. So you want the heel towards the belly, not towards the bottom. And you put it in here and you find your little notch and you line it up with the outside seam. And that's things that I just figured out from looking at it and going, what would the person who's working on the assembly line, they would need some kind of indication to make it easier to put this body together quickly. And then they had a specialized machine that you ran it through and it stitched, and you turned it, and it has either the bobbin, and it's either a single needle situation where it goes in and does the whole loop stitch. And I think, although it doesn't look like that on the inside, and I can't remember what it looked like, it's been so long, I can't remember what it looked like on the outside, but it might be that it's that type that it's a single, the needle goes in and pulls up the loop and goes through its own thing. So it's not a two-thread sewing situation, it's a one-thread sewing. And I know that the singer makes a children's that works in that way, so it's reasonable that in a factory setting you could have a setup where you're just sewing it through on the one side and there isn't anything underneath like a bobbin. And then once you have the arms and legs reattached, and in this case they're being sewn on, but on this one you would stick the leg down in here, and then I believe they used a zip tie to hold, a zip tie or a piece of wire. And I'm remembering wire, but that could have been on the Vogue's neck. Can't remember for certain. And there's no marks on here to indicate that it was being exposed to wire. So I'm not 100% certain. Zip ties were commonly used, and so were wires. So hey, if you have more experience with these types of dolls, let me know, because I'm going to admit that most of my experience with taking apart old dolls and putting them back together are the composition dolls. These are actually my first two plastic dolls, and this was a totally a surprise, the sewing. And all of the composition ones were put on with usually wire. I think I ran across one using a zip tie, but that could have been a replacement. And I remember having dolls as a child where when you put the zip tie through, it still shows back here. The American Girl dolls, the white-bodied ones would have a zip tie. They may still have a zip tie. No, the white-bodied ones had a string. See, I know that some of them had a zip tie and some of them had a string. But yeah, so there's still the type of construction isn't really changing that much. But anyway, once you get all your body parts attached, limbs attached in here, you would turn it to the right side. And then that's, oh boy, do I remember that leg. Little froggy legs is what I thought of them. Anyway, once you got it in here, you would stuff it and put the head in the hole and then run a zip tie or a wire through this channel here and get it up as tight as you could to connect the head on after stuffing. Also on this body, in order to keep the stuffing from going into the arms and legs, because obviously, you know, they're hollow here. They're gonna collect a bunch of stuffing in them, and you don't want that. So they did stitching, and you can kind of see it here, maybe. The stitch line to keep the stuffing out of the arm, and then there was a stitch line along here to keep the stuffing out of the leg. And that's the reason for the Horseman's having this enclosed like that, is that when you stick the arm here and you put the zip tie across the limb, it's closed. The stuffing can't get into the body, and you've got to get all the arms and legs back through the neck hole once you've got them attached to turn it right side out, which, you know, you saw me with one leg turning it right side out. It's not impossible, but it gets a little fiddly once, you know, you've got more than one or two when you've got all four appendages inside the body and you're trying to turn it, it gets a little fiddly. But anyway, there's that's what I'm working on. It kind of off and on, like I said, because of, well, first of all, having to wait all those years. And I do have one other doll. She's a 16-inch doll, and I will bring her over. Before I move on, I kind of want to mention that I used a heavy-duty thread here. I'm using a hemp thread, but any type of hand quilting thread would probably be quite sufficient. It just had a nylon thread in here, and I don't use nylon threads, especially not for hand stitching. They tend to make my skin burned, and polyester straight out. But if you can use those threads, they'll be a really good strong thread. And you use a square knot here, and if you're using a synthetic thread, you can heat seal it by burning it a little bit, which will cause the fibers to melt together so they can't unknot. Or you can put a piece of a little drop of glue on there to keep the knot from coming out. A square knot holds pretty good in of itself on natural fibers like the hemp and the cotton. And I want to correct what I said before. I said heel towards the belly, and it's heel towards the bottom. So there's the foot is this direction, like that, and that's the bottom. And you can see the opening in the back. And pliers. Duck-billed pliers really help with the stitching on things like this, because the needle isn't easy to move through here. And also try, if you're taking this kind of job on, try to use the same holes that the machine made in the plastic originally, because if you put too many additional holes, it will end up acting like a perforation and it'll tear. along the seam line. So that's another reason why I'm for the stitching spacing is pretty wide. And I think that's all I forgot to mention before. Before I got a gray stall, I wanted to have, and the gray stalls weren't available, I wanted to have a doll with the RTB 101 body so that I could take advantage of all the patterns and not have to adjust them. I was using them and adjusting them for Elowen, and that I just wanted to be able to make them straight up and put them on a doll. So I bought this doll on the secondary market, and she did have fragrance. So she went into a Ziploc. It's only been a year though, so I feel like our turnaround on this one was much, much better. She had had a moth in her hair or something of that kind. It's Claire, the model is Claire, this face sculpt, from Outlander. And it had chewed off, eaten through the hair. And so since one of the things that hangs on to fragrance is these fibers that they use for making doll hair. So I decided to just remove her hair because there was a big clump missing anyway, and I really liked her hair, so it's kind of disappointing that way, but it's not too horrible because if you can't get the fragrance out, and it might be why this one only took a year. So I removed her head and removed the hair and put her back in the Ziploc and left her for a couple more months or whatever it was at the time when I decided to let go of the hair, because I know that I didn't do that right off. It took me a while before I actually realized that her hair was where most of the fragrance was hanging in there. And anyway, so she's got this wig that I put on here, but it is not an expensive wig. It's kind of not, it shows around the edges really badly, and I've given her some piercings this is just acrylic paint and it will come off without a problem. Already has, and been put back twice. I may or may not decide whether or not to make them piercings like this one where I could change out the earrings. I don't know. I'm trying to decide how much I like it, and whether or not to go further and actually put holes. Right now it's removable, which is, I kind of like that. The other thing is that with the RTB 101 body, she had a rubber bottom, and it was breaking down, and she had transfer chemical reaction that I have seen on the dolls from the 1970s. When their soft body parts start to break down, they leave mark on the harder plastic parts, and it's gooey. Anyway, so she has a lot of markings on her bottom that are the result of that rubber butt decaying. It's just breaking down. So rather than doing the bit to try and salvage it, I just removed it. But I don't know that there's anything I can do about this texture that she's now got that they don't have underneath their rubber bottoms. I now have a Grace, 2 of them, and you've probably seen them in other videos. They don't have this texture. This is purely from the rubber butt breaking down. And I would love to know how to do something about that, but I think it's a matter of sanding. And I guess I probably will just keep clothes on her and not worry about it. But anyway, that's my other little project. And like I said, this one went a lot faster, a lot easier. And it's not that I wasn't checking on the others, because I would put them away and I would leave them for 6 months. But like every 6 months I would check, because you buy a doll, you want to have fun with it. And it wasn't that long ago that I was like, where are my baby dolls? Whatever happened with that? Why haven't I gotten those put back together? Oh yeah, they smell. And I was like, well, maybe they stopped smelling, because I'd really like to get my baby dolls out. And they are not completely fragrance free, but I think they've finally hit a space where I'm more tolerant of it. Let's hope so. I hope that working with it, I don't turn around and find myself with a migraine and going, oh, well, that was a bad plan. Let me know if there are any projects like this that you take on. And, you know, I've kind of decided that I shouldn't probably do it again, not with a plastic doll. I have a Cindy still in a Ziploc that, oh man, I am watching her closely. She is from, I think, 76 or 78. And it's the Cindy doll that as a child I really badly wanted. And someone very, very kindly gave her to me. And the fragrance is still really strong. And she was also suffering from the soft plastic starting to break down. And you treat that with sodium percarbonate, which is the active ingredient in OxyClean, I think. I don't know. I'm not 100% certain on that. I don't use things like Oxy. So, but I do use sodium percarbonate in my laundry and for cleaning things and gently taking care of the stained garments, doll clothes, you name it. It is just like the coolest thing for cottons, getting them clean. It probably works okay on linens, but don't use it on silk. And I don't know anything about how it works on synthetics. But anyway, I've got a Cindy that is still in the isolation, but I'm watching her a lot closer because she's been treated for the plastic breaking down. And part of what can cause that to get worse is being trapped within a package. So every so often, like especially summertime weather is perfect, take her out and I put her out where she is not going to be wafting into my space, and I let her get air outside, which also helps. It's kind of amazing to me how effective the sun is at cleaning fragrance out of, say, fabric. Sun and rain. We got hit with rainstorms several times. It happens a lot here, but I mean, we're trying to deal with some brand new fabric. Came in, it smells. Almost all the fabric that comes from the U.S. smells of fragrance, and so we have to wash it immediately. We put it out in the sun, and sometimes washing it gets the fragrance out, and I love it when it goes like that, but sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes the fragrance is hiding formaldehyde. That's the worst case scenario. But it goes out in the sunshine or on the line, and the rain sometimes will be more effective at neutralizing and dealing with the formaldehyde and the fragrance than the sun is. And I don't like leaving it, but it is a risk that I'm willing to take to be able to continue to get supplies, is that the sun damage, that I'll get fade. And I have gotten much better about putting the wrong side of the fabric up and towards the sun, but it's not usable to me until I get it to that stage of, fragrance free, or at least mostly removed. I hope you found that to be a fun, maybe informative, but definitely an enjoyable little look into my world. And I have a video coming out on Friday, I believe, about Granny. And last Friday was also about Granny and outfitting her. That's what we're doing, is we're outfitting her. And there might be a video on Monday about using the reclaim. It's a video we're working on, and I'm not sure if I'll get it out this coming Monday or if it'll be the following, but look for it. Joey and even Arthur, I mean, Arthur's not in the videos, but they're enjoying the results of their labors with the pug mill. So see you on Friday. Bye.